Welcome back to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the gritty, mounting tension of the 48th Chronicle of the Gnoll's Bane. We're going to play the role of neutral battlefield historians for a bit, observing a rapidly closing window of time. Now, if you've been following the overarching war, you already know the stakes have literally never been higher, and the atmosphere, it's never been darker. What we're looking at here is a story of total isolation, brutal survival, and a terrifying convergence of forces. Many roads now led toward Irondale, and one was traveled by a weary dwarf clutching his weapons in one hand and his flask in the other. I mean, that quote just perfectly sets our grim medieval stage, doesn't it? The King's Road is completely shattered. All that's left are these dangerous, unforgiving paths. You've got prisoners, traitors, and entire armies all converging on a single point. But it's this image of Bram Coulson, exhausted, gripping his weapon and his flask, that really grounds the gritty, exhausting tone of what's about to hit us. And this entire narrative is anchored by one specific number, 4. That is exactly 4 days of grueling travel, brewing rebellion, and intense psychological torment. It's the exact window of time between the Gauls' Bane falling to General Durog and their fateful, bloody arrival in the arena. Every single thing we're about to cover happens within this incredibly tight, high-pressure countdown. So let's break down this ticking clock. We have days 1 through 3, which are all about travel and torment. We've got 4 days for Bram to physically drag himself from Hammerdeep to Irondale, and 4 days for Telenor to get used to his new surroundings and exert his command as a traitor. Then, on the 4th day, the brutal arena games kick off. And finally, day 5, the teleportation portal opens up and changes absolutely everything. Part 1, 4 days in shadows, the lone march of Bram Coulson. Let's track Bram during those initial 3 days. A shattered bridge forces him off the main path and down into these dark, unforgiving tunnels, where he's navigating massive, monstrous threats entirely alone. We're talking 3 burrow maws, 6 emberclaws, 3 crystal ogres. Literally, each creature is more terrifying than the last. But the big takeaway here? His immense restraint. He doesn't fight. He simply tightens his grip on his axe, takes a pull from his flask, and creeps by in tense, absolute silence. It really roots the story in constant mortal danger. And miraculously, he actually avoids combat over those grueling days. The tunnels finally open up, he follows the distant roar of thousands of spectators, and quietly settles into the arena. Our very first piece on the chessboard just snaps into position. He finds a comfortable seat, and he just waits. The restraint is honestly palpable. Part 2, the general's humiliation. Psychological warfare in Uzgul's ranks. Now, while Bram was walking in silence, a totally different kind of battle was raging in the war rooms of Irondale over those exact same 4 days. It's a stark contrast. On one side, you have General Dugrog, suffering this humiliating fall from grace among his own soldiers. On the other side, there's Telenor, the sharp-tongued traitor who abandoned the Gnoll's Bane, and he's using this time to assert immediate dominance. Telenor makes sure no one forgets that Dugrog was nearly defeated by a rebel force of nameless prisoners. It goes to show that in Uzgul's ranks, words are just as sharp as steel, and showing weakness is basically a death sentence. So Durog is desperate to regain a standing, right? He ends up listening to Snurkirk the Flesh Tamer, who pitches this brutally elaborate execution. Step 1, study the prisoners. Step 2, exploit their weaknesses. Step 3, toss them into a flooded arena filled with sharks, specifically using the cold waters to entomb their captive, Calypso. It's a vicious, calculated move to remind all of Irondale who really holds power. But spoiler alert, Snurkirk severely underestimates who he's messing with. Part 3, Rebellions in the Deep. Mutiny beneath the arena. Down in the freezing, submerged holding chambers, Calypso manages to escape a shattered gate, only to find herself trapped in pitch-black water with 3 sharks and 3 enormous captive octopi. But she doesn't even blink. She completely trades magic for cold, calculated survival. She actually forms an alliance by casually offering the octopi to the hungry sharks. So, by morning, when the Duergar feeding crew opens the hatch, absolute nightmare fuel. Hands and jaws erupt from the pool, dragging the screaming crew beneath the surface. Calypso completely flips the script, turning an execution chamber into a tactical masterclass and securing the release grate. Meanwhile, Cedric Featherstep is waking up to the grim reality of a Duergar infirmary. The air literally smells of burnt hair and rendered fat from a dying patient nearby. But Cedric doesn't go for some grand explosive combat spell. Instead, he uses his druidic abilities for a stealthy, high-stakes prison break. He transforms into a tiny weasel, hops right past the oblivious guards, steals a ring of keys off a nurse, and sneaks deep into the holding chambers to unlock the cells of the ancient guardians, the Treants and the Blights. A forest had begun to move beneath Irondale. Oh, I just love the atmospheric dread of that line. Wood groaning, roots shifting, eyes opening within the bark. Irondale is up there thinking it's preparing for a standard bloody execution, completely unaware that a heavily armed forest of ancient guardians is literally creeping right beneath their feet. Part 4. The Fourth Day Games. Durog's Rematch. The ticking clock finally strikes day 4. That mounting pressure we've been tracking over the last 3 days, it finally blows, forcing the conflict straight out into the bloody sands of the arena. Okazaki, Roberto, Sunny, and Thane make a desperate escape attempt, getting as far as a balcony before they're completely overpowered by guards. But they aren't thrown back in their cells. No, they're escorted directly out into the glaring light of the Colosseum, dropping 4 members of the Gnoll's Bane exactly where Durog wants them. His own soldiers doubt him. Talinor has openly humiliated him, so Durog demands this brutal rematch as a public spectacle of his dominance. Before the assembled city, he fully intends to restore his legend through blood, standing right across from the very prisoners who nearly ended his life just 4 days prior. Let's look at the tactical board right as steel rings out across the Colosseum, because it is an absolute powder keg. In the arena center, you have Durog clashing with the prisoners. Up in the private suite, the generals are watching. Out in the spectator stands, Bram Coulson is leaning forward, waiting. Down below, the submerged grate, Calypso is commanding bloodthirsty sharks. And in the hidden passages, Cedric is leading an army of moving trees. Literally every single faction is perfectly coiled around Durog, just waiting for the exact right moment to strike. Part 5, the 5th day. The portal opens. But before the trap can fully spring, day 5 arrives, and the entire battlefield calculus is completely shattered by a sound unlike any weapon. All of that intense 4-day setup is obliterated in an instant as a magical portal tears open, right in the passage normally reserved for Irondale's champions. The chaos halts for just a fraction of a second, and every single eye in the Colosseum snaps toward this blinding, completely unexpected disruption. And who steps through? Out march Ord and Otis, the smallest members of the Gnoll's Bane, and they aren't filled with fear anymore. It's just pure determination. Plus, they didn't come alone. They brought a massive, disciplined vanguard with them. We're talking dwarven shields and heavy ballista crews from Hammerdeep, marching right alongside the pristine, disciplined ranks of the Crystal Kingdom's armies. They are pouring directly into the heart of Irondale. You really have to appreciate the staggering, poetic irony here. General Durog tried to isolate and crush his enemies in a controlled, theatrical arena. Instead, he has trapped himself in a Colosseum that is erupting into a total multi-front war. His prisoners are fighting back, Trents are striking from below, sharks are circling the waters, and now 2 entire allied armies are flooding through his gates. So as these armies violently clash and Irondale literally trembles on the brink of absolute destruction, our focus has to turn squarely back to the private suite above. Talinor, the sharp-tongued ranger who spent the last 4 days orchestrating Durog's psychological downfall, is watching all of this unfold. And the ultimate question we have to ask is, how is this master manipulator going to exploit this sudden, magnificent chaos? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to reflect on just how beautifully this ticking clock countdown was executed. We'll see you next time.